If I were to put a 48 degrees Celsius hot electric pad on the arms of everyone here in this theatre, how much pain do you think you'd feel? On a scale from 0 is no pain, right through to 100 out of 100 is the worst imaginable pain. And how much pain do you think the person next to you would rate it? Well, that study has been conducted. The average rating was 72 out of 100, but listen to this. The lowest rating was 4 out of 100, and there were people all the way in between, right up to the highest rating was 100 out of 100. And for me, this illustrates a crucial point, that pain is deeply personal, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the amount of tissue damage. In that experiment, there was no tissue damage. And so pain has layers of complexity. Because pain is subjective by its very definition, it's challenging for researchers to navigate all of the possible lenses that people see pain through. And it's tricky for clinicians to navigate all these different understandings. And most importantly, it's tricky for people who are facing those challenges of chronic pain to navigate all of this. Pain is often misunderstood. I don't know you and you don't know me, and our pain experiences are uniquely our own. Throughout history, we have seen major shifts in how we understand the world. People once thought that the earth was flat. We didn't think much of sunburn. Seatbelts were an optional extra. But these all changed through what we call conceptual revolutions. Think about how in the 1980s, the Slip, Slop, Slap campaign transformed skin cancer prevention, or how our seatbelts are now obviously necessary. Today, I want us to start a conceptual revolution in how we think about pain. Did you know many people feel dismissed, that their pain isn't real, and rightly confused by all the competing ideas out there about what's going on? This silent thief that we call pain, that can steal meaningful activities from us, is quite mysterious. The experience of pain is intertwined with so many different variables. Not only what we see, or even all our fears, it's also how we feel, and also our ideas. It's what we think might happen, and even what is planned. It's also how we move, even what we understand. And now that rhymed, and I'm not just a researcher, I am a children's book author, and so sometimes I sound a little bit like Dr. Seuss. With pain, the physical aspects are not the whole story. Before we dive in, I want to share 3 quick facts so we're on the same page. Fact number 1, roughly 1 in 5 people around the world are facing the challenges of long-lasting, disruptive, chronic pain. My PhD was in children's pain, and the latest data shows that there's about 5 kids in every classroom who are missing an average of, get this, 9 weeks of school per year because of pain. It's staggering. Statistically speaking, you probably know someone, or there's someone sitting near you who's facing this. Fact number 2, no 2 people feel pain the same way. Remember the hot pad on your arms? And fact number 3, the way that we feel about pain can change the way that we feel the pain. And each of these facts underscore to me the complexity and the impact of this feeling we call pain. Now, as a university lecturer in the neuroscience of pain, and as a children's book author about pain, and as a researcher about pain, I spend a lot of time thinking about this topic. And today, I want to share with you 3 lenses, new lenses based on the latest research, for how we can think about pain. And I think it might just spark a conceptual revolution. Are we ready? Okay, our first one is the lens of a detective. This is a magnifying glass here. Instead of viewing pain like a lawyer would, where the focus is on injustice and blame, and it can gradually lead to getting stuck, With this curious detective's lens, it's about thinking about the clues or influences on each pain experience, moment by moment. And the research categorizes these influences into three main overlapping and interacting categories: biology, psychology, and social factors. Biopsychosocial is the big word. And so this lens is about trying to identify the biopsychosocial influences of what's happening in the pain experience. I think of the families that I've met in hospital clinics, like John. He and his daughter Sophie had tears welling up as they explained how they felt misunderstood by their health professionals. Their anger and frustration, they had a sense of injustice about the pain because Sophie was missing out on school because of it. And the research shows an association between a sense of injustice and worse outcomes. And so for John and Sophie, their fear played into a cycle of fear, avoidance, disability. Fear, avoidance, disability. And it goes around and around. And it's very tough. And so the detective lens investigates broader influences. These biopsychosocial influences really could be anything, from the news headlines that you read this morning through to your childhood memories. There's even a study on the influence of smell. The cost of a treatment, your expectations, Dr. Google, or now Dr. AI. So this is an introduction to the magnifying glass, the detective lens. Are we ready for our second one? Now, as a pediatric researcher, I get to try and find the fun in each moment. So probably the only TED Talk wearing a chef's hat today. Instead of thinking about pain in terms of the body parts affected, like an engineer would focus on fix the structure and fix the pain, with the chef's lens, we think about ingredients. We think about all of the biopsychosocial ingredients, tens and hundreds of them, and how much they contribute overall. This chef lens is very transformative for many people. I think of Emma. She was a 9-year-old, and I interviewed her for my PhD. She was from a rural town, and she told me, if you have pain, you fix it by getting a knee replacement. She said, my mum had one, my neighbour had one. And I remember thinking, what about pain in other locations, like headaches? And guess what this concrete thinking 9-year-old Emma said? Knee replacement. But we know that hurt does not necessarily equal harm. And so the chef lens provides a way for us to comprehend the mind-blowing findings coming out of recent studies. Let me give you a few quick examples. Firstly, it's common for people who don't have pain, who get an MRI or an X-ray done, to have scary-sounding findings on that report. And so pain isn't that straightforward. You can't see pain on a scan, and we need some nuance in our thinking. Secondly, some fake or sham surgeries are having similar pain outcomes to what we traditionally thought was the required surgery. And thirdly, long-term outcomes are best achieved via long-term strategies. There are so many different ingredients to every pain experience. And the ingredients are different for everyone. In a recent pilot study we did in schools, following it was pain science education in schools, and the principal came to us a little while after the study, and he said that the children in the playground are showing more empathy to each other after learning this latest neuroscience. Did you catch that? Students are able to understand that everyone's pain recipe is unique. And so maybe the latest neuroscience of what's happening under our skin could make us more caring. This is the chef's lens. Now, I could keep this on, I won't. And you can have multiple lenses at once, but let's move on to the third one. the park ranger's lens. Now, a park ranger thinks about nurturing growth throughout different seasons. To use another metaphor, it's like the driver's seat rather than a passive passenger seat on your pain journey. And when I see these gloves, I think of how many pain conditions fluctuate up and down in intensity. And with a fluctuating condition, we can fall into a trap very easily of thinking whatever we did when the pain was up here and really bad is what caused the pain to come down. It's kind of like having a fancy sounding fertilizer. Putting it on a plant, the plant grows, you attribute it to the fertilizer when in fact the growth came because it's spring. And so your parent, your uncle, your aunt, whoever it is you know who's challenged by pain, they may be thriving in this season and they may be struggling in the next, or vice versa. And I think all of us being aware of that is useful. I remember as a teenager, I was training for long distance running in the suburbs of my hometown in Sydney. And one afternoon, my soccer coach spotted me and he called out, "Josh, don't run on the concrete, you'll wreck your knees." And I remember from then on, for months and actually years afterwards, I was really cautious about running on hard surfaces. This well-meaning but outdated advice from an influential adult made me feel more like a passenger. It was really hard. And I was letting fear dictate my pain-related decisions. I didn't have this potentially helpful long-term growth perspective of a park ranger. The other thing I love about a park ranger lens is that it encourages us to engage as much as we can in meaningful activity, to get out there and do more of what we love. I want you to keep an eye out for some brilliant studies underway looking at how we can maximize our quality of life even in the presence of pain. Now, these aren't the only lenses through which people see pain. Our perspectives of pain are as diverse as we are. For instance, some people see pain through a punishment lens, viewing pain as something they deserve. Others, they see pain very, very differently, like an artist inspiring creativity. Then there's a philosopher lens, seeing pain as something to be, a philosopher lens is about like thinking pain is a pathway to wisdom. And then there's a warrior lens where pain is something to be overcome. And the thing I love about speaking about these kinds of lenses is that it leads to curiosity and it leads to curious thinking and it leads to curious language. And so let's just pause now for a second. And I want to ask you, what lens are you seeing pain through? We all need to feel validated about our pain experiences. And I'm not convinced that a relatively one-way talk like this could ever allow for mass validation, for the complexity of an individual's pain experience to feel heard. It's just so individual. And therefore, everyone's lens matters. To identify with another's pain experience, you'd have to not just feel a disease or an injury, but all of the other things. Imagine if there was a virtual reality headset and you could immersively experience the fullness of someone's chronic back pain with all of the associated frustration and fear, the stigma, the deconditioning, the relationship challenges. Now, such goggles don't exist. We rely on pain being communicated and on that communication being received, ideally with empathy. With all these examples today, I hope I've got you thinking about the lens that you see others' pain through. And now, if we grab this mirror and turn it to yourself, do you see your pain as multifactorial? Are you seeing your pain with that same kind of compassion I've been speaking about? New neuroscience knowledge may underpin compassion, but also self-compassion. And so whether you are in a waiting room or you're waiting for pain to go away, please remember that pain is always complex. It's always real, it's always personal, and pain is always influenced by many factors. Trying on these new lenses may just spark a revolution, and I think that this revolution has the long-term potential of being as beneficial to society as how seatbelts save lives. So remember, it can take time and persistence to detect all the ingredients of pain in every moment across every season. And this starts with each of us trying on new lenses. Thank you.